Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/MaliciousCompliance. In today's episode, boss says I have to scan packages before I load them, then gets mad when I refuse to load unscanned packages. Can't expense my bike rides home? Okay, then I'll take very expensive Ubers instead. College or MCDs? An easy choice. Now you get to be HOA president. To parent malicious compliance. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Boss says I have to scan packages before I load them, then gets mad when I refuse to load unscanned packages. Hello everyone, nice to meet you. I'm very new to writing on this subreddit, so I hope I'm doing this right. I didn't even realize this was malicious compliance until recently. Note, I will of course be changing names for privacy's sake. First things first, the backstory. I work at a large hub facility of a well-known shipping company with the main delivery trucks that deliver packages to homes and smaller businesses. The packages come with barcodes on the side as well as small spot labels that allow someone to see the address and which truck they go on. We used to be given small scanners that would scan the barcodes in order to ensure we didn't put the packages on the wrong trucks or get a package that didn't belong, as sometimes the labels could be wrong or it could lose its label. The trucks were even fitted with sensors, so if you scan a package and try to walk into a truck where it doesn't belong, the scanner would start to whine. With that set up, now enters our main antagonist in this story, Alan, my former supervisor. Alan is a short, skinny guy with a thin mustache and is a micromanager of the highest degree. He always walked up and down the trucks to watch us work, watched us from a distance or close by with his arms crossed to get us to work faster, constantly told us to grab all of our packages as they come to us despite the fact they go around on a moving conveyor belt that literally loops them back if we miss them, told us to load up our larger packages as soon as we get them despite the fact it makes it harder to move through the trucks and place other packages on the shelves, and even hopped into some people's trucks to move packages around the right way, his way. I can go on and on about Alan, but today I'm here to vent about just one of these events or we would be here all day. So anyways, Alan had me and all the other packages handlers of our area in a group texting chat in order to tell us our start times for our next shift as well as compare our work speeds to each other via our scanning count. I assume to make us feel bad and work harder, but we don't really care. Around that time, the number of packages we loaded onto our trucks, as we call it, had increased, and ever since Alan had been adding to his group messages that we need to scan every package and make sure we are aiming for 0 misloads. Annoying, but nothing too serious, at least I thought. On to the actual story portion. So, one day, I'm working on belt as usual and my scanner suddenly decided to screw up on my, as they tend to do if smacked or if the battery comes loose. I go to Alan and ask him if he could help me fix it or give me a new one to use. Instead, he takes it and tells me to keep loading my trucks without the scanner and just use the labels on the packages. This isn't really allowed, and instead I chose to stack the packages in front of the trucks so I can scan them once I get a new scanner. Alan eventually comes down and tells me to just load them into the trucks normally and to stop stacking. Frustrating, but I shrug and do it to try and avoid any real conflict. That evening, Alan messages the group and lists out our speeds with me at the bottom and is once again spouting on that we need to make sure we are scanning our packages before loading them, and even comes to talk to me the next day about my number of misloads. I'm angry, of course, as he is the one to tell me, but at that point I was still fairly new to the job and didn't feel comfortable arguing with the supervisor, so I just try to continue on with my work with a mental note of always scanning my packages no matter what, so he can't pull this again, unaware that this will be my malicious compliance later on. Fast forward a few months later. Alan is leaving for real estate and is training one of the package handlers to be his replacement before he leaves. By that time I am fed up with all the micromanaging and pestering, and can't wait for him to be gone. It's about the final week of his employment that I'm working the belt and once again my scanner frigs up and stops working. I hand it over to Alan once again, and just like before, as if he has never cared about scanning, he tells me to keep loading the trucks. I smile to myself and nod. So I continue, stacking my packages in front of my trucks, waiting for that new scanner to arrive. Not long after, Alan comes back with the trainee at his side. He asks me what I'm doing, and I tell him I am stacking my packages. Once more, he tells me to keep loading my trucks, and this time I talk back, telling him I'm not loading them without a scanner. I have to admit, at this time, I was done with Alan and let my anger get the better of me, raising my voice and getting a bit shaky as I have a very hard time dealing with anger, especially after dealing with his sh*t for so long. The trainee tries to settle the situation and tell me to just keep stacking and they'll get a scanner right away, but is interrupted by Alan telling me once again to load my trucks, this time louder. I flatly respond no, and thus it goes back and forth like this for nearly half a minute before I eventually tell him to get it to me in writing because I'm not getting fired over this. Remember, we are not supposed to load a package without scanning it, and can indeed get in trouble if they can prove we sis it intentionally. This seems to get him even more mad, and he eventually tries to pull the head supervisor card. He asks me if I would like him to go get the head supervisor to try and intimidate me, I guess. I wasn't able to chuckle in my anger and just told him to go ahead and get him. Him and the trainee walk off with him storming down the belt. A few minutes later, the trainee comes back with a scanner in hand, apologizing and telling me to just get back to work. I didn't see Alan for the rest of the day, and if memory serves, the rest of his final week as well. Sorry if it's not as explosive as some of the other posts, but this was just my first real malicious compliance and I hope you enjoyed the read all the same. And to any supervisors reading this, please just let us do our freaking jobs. Can't expense my bike rides home? Okay, then I'll take very expensive Ubers instead. I have recently started a new job and one of the perks is that if you work late, you can have a free dinner and then take an Uber back home. However, I much prefer renting an electric bike back home, you know, the ones on the sidewalk. It's faster, much better for the environment, fun and a great way to decompress after a long days of work. After a month of that, I send my expense report, but they refuse to pay back the bike rides saying I need to use Uber. This annoyed me as if was more than £100, so I decided to use an Uber for the following month, making sure to choose exec each time. Next month, my late night ride expenses increased by almost 5x. Needless to say, they strongly encouraged me to get back on the bike and offered to buy me a subscription if available. Unfortunately, it's not. College or MCDs? An easy choice. Not sure if this is considered malicious, but I was compliant. I worked at MCDs for a couple years, actually enjoyed the job. Easy job, fun crew. I was promoted to crew trainer, a step below management, a bit of responsibility, a tiny raise, and got to know the new crew as they were hired. It was fun. After a bit I decided to take a few college classes, so talked to the management about switching from closing to opening, not a problem, they wanted me to know all aspects of the store as we're getting ready to promote me to management. Worked opening for a couple weeks and the owners needed our good managers at a failing location, but unfortunately that meant sending those managers to our location. Within a couple of days, the atmosphere changed and it was no longer a fun job. 3 weeks in the management, started scheduling me closing shifts. So I sat down and talked with the new GM and explained I am in college and needed to be on breakfasts, and had been transferred there. She said, "You are a crew trainer. You will work the shifts I schedule you," and I said sorry, but prior management changed me to mornings, you were hired for closing. You will work closing. I told her, again, I was in college and was not available. She said, "You make a choice right now, your job or college." Ha! I smiled, walked to the register, punched out, handed her my name tag and walked out with her screaming at me that I can't do that because I'm a crew trainer. Sorry lady, a part-time job at MCDs under bad management or college? Bye-bye. Within 6 months all the original crew had quit and the place went to pieces. Now you get to be HOA president. To parent malicious compliance. About 25 years ago, my parents built their dream house. Although the house is now in the middle of a large metroplex, when they built it was in the fringes of countryside, with rapid development over 2 decades. When they bought the lot, they were the first to purchase from the developer. The developer sold to 3 original neighbors, my parents plus 2 others, all at the end of the cul-de-sac in a row. The other streets in this plat became a large subdivision with a fancy name that would come to bear a lot of prestige. But that meant being part of an HOA. They didn't want that. The developer wouldn't sell them the land without an HOA. If you aren't part of the community, you'll need to form your own HOA and get it approved. So my dad, with a beatific grin, said he would be the HOA president of our single suburban street. He and the 2 neighbors drafted the bylaws of their own HOA in strict accordance with the planned neighborhood. But they added a special provision that the president of the HOA could name a successor, instead of having the street vote on one. Absent a majority rejection, the successor would be the president. Essentially trying to avoid terms/campaigning, while still offering folks a way to dispute the HOA president, important for later. So in the winter of 1994, my father very seriously took the thick black CD binder full of laminated and hole-punched instructions and pages on how to be a good HOA president and put that binder in the very back of a cabinet and forgot about it for the next 16 years. The homeowners of our street were not asked to pay an annual fee, and the HOA didn't police number of cars, colors of front doors, or any other ridiculous standards HOAs enforce. As it was a quiet cul-de-sac, no one did anything more egregious than the occasional reckless teenager. Then a new family built the house across from us. It consisted of 2 children, a husband, and a psalm we'll call Gladys, Kravitz, for the Bewitched fans. Now Gladys was a real busybody. She would stand at the front windows of her house to watch/patrol which cars were using the cul-de-sac to turn around, when houses down the street held events/parties and were using the front of her house to park, for literally a night, and sending noise complaints to the police about barking dogs, her other neighbors' kids. There were 6 in a blended family, the other neighbors' cars, they were collectors, not even repairing cars, and other ridiculously petty things. She didn't have a job, so safety patrol became her whole identity. She would always hurry over to gossip whenever my mom was taking out the trash cans to the curb. Sadly, my dad contracted a neuromuscular disease in 2005. It got bad quickly, and he was confined to a wheelchair. I learned to drive for my hardship license in a handicap van, and we had more than the usual number of cars due to round-the-clock caregivers in the later years. Gladys decided it was time to offer help to my poor mother who was slaving absurd hours just to keep creditors at bay. Gladys very sweetly approached, expressed her sympathies for our struggles, pointed out the number of cars in our driveway, and generously, so generously, offered to take over the president of the HOA duties if my father would name her successor. After being hounded the 6th or 7th time, and Gladys hinting that if my mom was struggling so much, maybe she could send my dad to hospice and move houses to something more suited. In fact, Gladys' best friend was looking for a house and would love to live across the street and buy our house, my mom snapped. She basically told Gladys to stop asking, and that her husband was dying, and it was incredibly insensitive and rude to offer to kick us out of the neighborhood and take over just because she wanted clout to annoy the neighbors about letting kids play basketball after 6 p.m. Gladys responded nastily that my dad would have to name a successor because when he died, soon, the HOA presidency would revert back for election. Okay then, Gladys. You're absolutely right. My dad should name someone the HOA president as his successor after his 16-year reign. Malicious compliance activated. After my dad died, my mom found out she was named as the next HOA president in my dad's will. Dad never said anything about it while he was alive, but his humor was always understated. Gladys was apoplectic. She tried to overturn the successor claim and run against my mom, but nobody else on the street contested the choice. No one, all new neighbors after 20 years, even knew we had a special single-street HOA. And for another 9 years my mom did absolutely nothing as HOA president. My mom had to sell the home in 2019 very unwillingly, as it was the house my parents built together. But with the development of the city, property taxes had risen too high and priced her out. I took a week off work to fly out and help her pack, and while packing up the house we found my dad's OG 1994 HOA binder, bylaws and all. And of course, Mom had to name an HOA successor. So this time she did comply. The malicious part was more against everyone else. Very ceremoniously, lol not, my mom finally named Gladys the president of the HOA and gave her the binder, which apparently has long since been digitized, and something Gladys had been reading for fun in preparation of this moment. Apparently Gladys went rabid with the power, as her kids had gone off to college, and promptly charged everyone on the street $100 a month towards neighborhood incidentals, supposedly for mowing the strip that people just mowed themselves, and a highly encouraged neighborhood barbecue one Saturday a month to address the neighborhood concerns. She also outlawed basketball hoops in driveways, dictated no cars could be parked on the street or in driveways but only in garages, things like landscaping and holiday decor approval and other inane, absurd power trips. My mom kept her next door app open and watched Gladys go down in flames. 3 separate households moved and dropped long hate-filled call-out posts about Gladys making their lives a misery until they couldn't stand it anymore. That's 3 of 12 houses, BTW. Yeah. Gladys wrecked the single street HOA with a quarter loss. Gladys got everything she wanted, my dad to name an HOA successor, my mom to name an HOA successor, for us to move away, and for her to finally be HOA president. And now everyone absolutely hates her, and no one will pay her $100 or go to her BBQs, and before my mom finally deleted the street from her next door, it seems that the rest of the street had voted to hold an election for a new HOA president. Her tenure lasted 6 months. Gladys doesn't understand why people talk so fondly about my parents as the most ideal HOA presidents, since they never did a thing. My mom is 2 years into her new home, and does not miss the neighborhood anymore, at all. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.